Hey, what is up, guys? This is Raven. Yay! And in today's story time, I know this is my main channel. Like, this is my, you can say second channel because my main is Pokemon Couple, but I realized that stuff related not to Pokemon or not to, like card games, I'm gonna do here. So we're gonna start it off with the first story time that I wanna have it here, which is my first ever comic book and how I get myself into comic books. Because as you may know, like if you cannot tell, I'm a huge comic book lover, huge comic book fanatic, as you know, and really, I had to minimize my own face. And I talk a lot about comic books in my videos. I have comic books, ton of them right there, some of them on the wall. So you asked me like how I got myself into them. Like, was I a kid when I bought myself the first comic book? Was I older? What was my first comic book? Do I still have my first comic book? And I'm gonna answer all of that now. I don't know how many parts we're gonna do, but we're gonna do some parts. So, first things first, how I got myself into comic books. Actually, when I was a kid, I was reading this like weekly, monthly, this thick. I'm gonna call it comic book, with the Donald Duck. Like it was called a giant. That how was it called? I was maybe like from 8 to 11 to 11 years old. But the reading is too much to say. I was just like looking at the artwork and trying to figure out the story. I kind of hated reading those, but I loved the art and I loved reading them, right? Like just going browsing through them, and I had a huge collection of them, and they were relatively cheap, and those were the comic books that were available in my country at the time. At least to my knowledge, because there were no comic books in the normal stores. They were nowhere to be seen, right? So those were like my beginnings of comic books. Then I've left it. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need that. And for many years, I haven't actually read any comic books. I got myself into books more, into like Tom Clancy and other books. We're gonna talk about that in another video. But around that time, I also started thinking about, hey, I enjoy superheroes, especially Batman. So maybe I should go and buy a comic book and check out, is it good? Because I've never actually read when I was like 18. So I went to the store, and the only comic book that was there was the first. I believe that's the first. I think it's the first issue of Sin City that was there. I'm like, oh, whoa, those lips, everything. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna check it out. So actually, I still have it. I still have my first ever comic book that I've bought, and this is Frank Miller's Sin City. That's how it looks like, and you can see like that's in Polish. This is Sin City in Polish, and of course it's protected. I have no idea how many years it has. It's beaten up. Like you can tell. I was like maybe 16, 17 when I bought the first issue of it, and I was like, oh wait, like is this should be in a comic book? Like whoa, when I see like the women like there, like the boobs, I'm like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do at night. No, but really, like I've read it. I'm like, there's nothing special about comic books, and I just like tossed it. That's why it's so beaten up, because I thought like, oh, comic books are not that special. They're not that cool. Like you've got boobs, you maybe fab 2 times to it, and that's it. That's the story. So it was actually tossed, like I just under my bed, and was there for many years. So then I was 19, I believe, 19, where I came back from France, and I figured out, you know what, I might check if there's any local comic book store that I may actually go to and maybe buy some comic books. And in my local town, there are two, but I don't recommend them. Like they're awful. Like they're really awful, overpriced. And I love to support local stores, local game stores, local comic book stores, whatever. But those two stores are so overpriced. Like it's insane. Really, it's just that insane. So I'm like, okay, I went there and I've looked at used comic books, and they were like $9 each. Used comic book, and not like a full graphic novel, but just an issue like that, just an issue. And I've seen Superman and there was the whole series of Death of the Superman in Polish, so it was not even worth it, that money. Like, it was worth maybe, like a buck or less. That's how it should be worth. And I'm like, you know what? It's a DC. I like Batman. I love the movies. I love the video games. Like, this is my type of hero. Yeah, I'm gonna buy it, and we'll see if there's gonna be a Batman. Sure, we're gonna buy it. So I bought myself the Superman. I've read it. I'm like, it's not that special. Like, those are the comic books. They're not that cool. And I'm like, okay, screw it. Like, I've sold it. I've sold the whole Death of the Superman. I've read it. I've sold it. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna look at comic books ever again. And as I was like cleaning my house, I found this under my bed. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna give this one more shot. And those are like 4 years passed, 5 years passed. It was 4 or 5 years under my bed, and I read it again. I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, I love the art style. I really do enjoy it. Let's go again to the local comic book store and let's see if they have any used comic books. So I went there, and I see they have Batman. I'm like, oh boy. I don't remember what was the first story that I've bought with Batman. I think yeah, they've had Batman versus Predator, part two. That was the first one, and they've had I think with a Swamp Thing, or I don't remember really, but one of the Batman like early comic books in my native language. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy those two. With the Predator, it was okay. But I've read the second one. I believe that was it was so many years ago. I don't remember, but I remember reading it, and really, art stood out to me. Like the storytelling, I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. This is good. This is really something that I'm gonna enjoy. So I'm like, okay, sure. I would love to know what happened next in the story. But since it was used, there was nowhere to be found the new story, and so I've waited. Like, I haven't bought any comic books. Like, I was reading books, normal books, again, and then the New 52 came out, and I'm like, you know what? The New 52 came out. They're rebooting the series. They're rebooting the universe. Let's go and let's buy a Batman, and I've bought a Batman, the first, not an issue, but an actually like the first 7 issues of the Batman, because they in my country they're doing those books, and that was Court of the Owls. And I've read it. I'm like, oh crap! Like, wow, loving the art, the story, the characters. I was super excited, and the Court of the Owls was actually the comic book that got me super into comic books. I'm like, wow, I want to read more. So I've bought myself the Jonah Hex All-Star Western, I believe. I still have it somewhere there. I'm like, okay, I love Deadpool, so I've bought a Deadpool anthology. And with everything I bought, like, with every single, issue or a book or a graphic novel that I've bought, I was getting myself more and more into comic books, which is super cool if you ask me, because, you're now knowledgeable, you can talk to people. And I didn't close my mind on on DC, because I am a DC guy. Sorry, but that's true. But I still have Marvel comic books, and Kovac, the girl that I'm with right now, she is super into Marvel. So we've got like Wolverine, we've got Avengers now, and discussion which one is better. Maybe one day. But I think if you're really into comic books, or maybe you're thinking about starting like your adventure with comic books, or you're like, they're for little kids, I freaking hate them, just give them a shot. Just really give them a shot. Maybe don't start with like the classics, like the Watchmen, which I had tattooed. But oh, that's funny. Sorry, you don't know that I have a Watchmen tattoo on me. Don't start with the Watchmen. Maybe don't maybe start with the classics, because the art style may not be that appealing to you at first, because they're the older ones. Start with something new. Start with one of the first issues of maybe DC Rebirth, Marvel Now, maybe New 52. Start with that, find your hero or the series, because basically that is it. You have to have, like, your main hero. For me, it's Batman. Then, I enjoy Green Arrow, I enjoy the Flash. I hate Superman, sorry, but it's just a bad character to be like, oh, you're invincible. Well, let's forget about it. I enjoy Deadpool. So, for example, if you're into humor, like, and you're into dick jokes, do yourself a favor and start with the Deadpool issue one that, came out as a Marvel Now. Don't do the Daniel way. No, this is bad. But, the Marvel Now Deadpool. Start with that. If you're into Batman, Court of Owls. Fantastic beginning, or into Flash. Try the New 52, because you're like, oh, the Big Bang Theory, the Sheldon is into Flash. I'm gonna try it out. X-Men, try maybe Uncanny X-Men. If you're into Avengers, right? You've seen the Avengers movies, like the newest one with Thanos, Infinity War. Try this comic book. Or if you enjoyed, the clash between Captain America and Iron Man. This is the whole comic book that is a little bit different. Okay, a lot different than the movie. So check this out. It's like, going back and reading an actual book, and the graphic novels are fantastic. And especially now you have the summer events, like I don't remember the one from Marvel when Captain America said Hail Hydra, right? Like, this is whoa, how can Captain America be, a Hydra guy? Or the DC Metal. Like, this is super crazy. Like, this DC Metal is super crazy, the Doomsday Clock that is happening right now. But you have to, for Doomsday Clock, I wouldn't recommend starting with that. This is super confusing. But just give them a shot. If you're enjoying, like, good storytelling, you enjoy art, give them a shot. They're really worth it. And I'm not going to open this because this is sealed, and I like to keep it sealed because I really want to put this on the wall one day. Like that, because this is the one that started for me. And Frank Miller, like, wow, like this is the guy. And again, if you're into Marvel, why not start it, like, you can go Fantastic Four. Actually, a good Fantastic Four story. Daredevil, like Frank Miller run on Wolverine. Why not? I know, you're into Thor. There's now a female Thor. You're into Spider-Man, and wow, you have a variety of of comic books. And even if you're into fantasy and you're not especially into superheroes, there's many of comic books that don't revolve around the superheroes. There are many comic books that revolve around real life stories or fantasy stories. So really, you want to get yourself a favor one day. Like, I'm not saying right now, but try out the comic books. And yeah, that's basically it. Like, my story, how I get into comic books is really simple. Just, one day stumbled upon a comic book, then another comic book, and that's just a classic case of stuff like that. If it's the same with candy. You eat one candy, like, it's good. I might take another one. Oh, you know what? I might take another one, and then you ended up with the whole pile, like, right? Like, so it's the same for me with comic books. And you have a perfect example in the TV series Young Sheldon, about the Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, but he's younger, when he's like, I hate those comic books, like, they're for children. And then he's waiting, he's bored, and there's an X-Men comic book lying around. He's like, yeah, I like reading, I'm gonna read that. Bam, he reads X-Men comic book, and then he goes into comic book store and actually reads that, like, the whole thing, because he wants to know what's happening next. And really, comic books are a very amazing medium, and cheap actually to read and to enjoy the art, especially now when you can get artists to sign them, like on Comic-Con or whatever con there is around you. There are many artists that are having signings. They're even doing special editions. And Marvel and DC is starting this now. But if you say, like, oh, I hate, like, okay, I don't want to go there and buy comic books, you can actually get yourself a digital versions of the comic books. Like, there is this monthly subscription kind of thing with Marvel, and now DC starting it, when you have older comic books and also the newer ones that are coming out in it. So pretty cool deal, pretty great idea. So yes, I have to thank Frank Miller for actually getting me my ass into comic books. So yeah, that's my story with the comic books. And if you're enjoying this type of stuff, please comment down there below, really, because I want to know what do you want to have on this channel, besides like other games that I'm playing, besides stories, besides comic books, besides comic book reviews that I'm planning to do, and many other stuff. And wow, this, like, you can actually see, I don't know if you can tell, but you can see that here, like, the pages are torn. Like, you know, this is the page that is coming out. This is a destroyed comic book, but it just has a lot of meaning, and yeah, it's just that amazing. So thank you guys very much for watching. Subscribe to the channel, check out my Twitch, RavenCalledSnejku. It's the same Twitch as the channel and our main YouTube channel, which is Pokemon Capital. Thank you so much. Mwah! Raven loves ya. Goodbye. Like Kenny Omega says, goodbye. Mwah! Good night.